talking about how getting old sucks and and everything else in between. And it blew us away, and they had such a huge audience, and we're talking retirees, right? So 50 plus that were diving into this, and then we were like, wow, this is pretty interesting. So after that, the senior center asked if we could do something with the social workers and help them do it. Well, we have, right? We all have the equipment to capture audio. We happen to have some radio style microphones, or more of a studio type microphones. So we produced a show where we taped it, plus we did the podcast with it, right? Because we're just taking that file, exporting it, and making it work. And it was amazing. It worked. We tried out some free software that sent the file up so you could pick it up in the App Store. You could pick it up at your favorite downloadable thing. Or how many of you have actually downloaded podcasts? Well, that's good. Any recommendations?
Subscribe, or just once in a while?
I think that's what it was.
Just once in a while.
I subscribe.
Like subscribe like into like something to listen to.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I like 10 of them right now. So.
Anybody do Slow Burn? That's a good one. That's a really good one. I signed up for like all the news ones. I'm a news junkie, so I like catching the especially the evening news. It's kind of interesting to listen to them afterwards. It's funny, ABC News is like a day old. Like they don't get theirs up until the next day, which is really funny to me. And when Doug and I were talking about this session, we were talking about, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but podcasts are, podcasting, just like what you guys do with your shows and stuff, you gotta have episodes, right? It's not just one and done dealios. People are coming back because they want to get the next 20-minute or an hour, whatever the thing is. So, something that Doug will talk on, I'm sure, today. Yep, now that I opened that can of worms. So important to do, so. I think it's an interesting thing. I think we all have the technology to do it. I think it's just finding where we're going to put it, where people can find it, and can we fit it in our budget? Free? Yes. Long term, we got to figure out how we're going to get to that motto. So that's my huge stalling intro for Doug.
We're not ready yet, so.
All right, well.
He's got to keep going. All right, welcome. Thank you. So you did the survey already. We have someone who subscribes. You listen once in a while to podcasts. Yeah. But I'm asking you all, did you not listen to a podcast or use a podcast? Is there a reason you haven't yet? Never thought of it before? No? Okay. Do you feel that it might be a service to your community? That's why you're here. Yeah. The reason I'm asking is that this thing?
No, I don't think you're not wirelessly going into this, are you?
I don't think so.
No, that's just a...
Okay, you know what? I'll talk over it. Okay, while this is up here, I'm just gonna let you hear something, because the title of this, the last part of the title for this lecture presentation was "It's Easy." Okay.
Sorry, keep on going.
It's all right.
So let this reflect the survey.
I do a lot of audio setups myself, by the way, and I'm out in the field, and so what you're doing is a miracle, because you gotta have more connectors than you know what to do with, and wires and everything else, and then the interference from the ground. It says it's easy. It is actually easy. As I go through my presentation, you're gonna find that the technical aspect of this is very easy. The money's available to you, and the expense of it is very easy. Now, I had the chance and the opportunity to sit earlier with your radio show group. You were here earlier, and I happened to walk in. That's the hard part. Where you were discussing content and volunteers, it's right on, man. That's what I'm going to talk about here as well, and maybe ways of helping that. The other thing that your group talked about too was programming. They were here earlier talking about radio stations in the community. Okay, that have producers come in, volunteers to produce radio shows. Okay. Also, you push that out to an automated system. It's over AM or FM?
It's FM.
FM. Okay. All right.
FM.
Okay. So the easy part with that is, podcasts, we don't care about transmitting at all. You can pick it up anywhere, anytime, and I'm going to talk about that as well. Since I have this up, I just have to play this. When I talk about not easy, and you have a volunteer that wants to do a show, something like that, it could end up like this.
Now earlier, before we started, we started this show here today, we talked about, you've got a section called the vault. And inside the vault is, explain to our listeners what the vault's all about.
That was unedited. It sounded like a bad edit all the way through. That's unedited. So the not easy part is the speaking part, the person speaking. They're not aware of how confusing they sound. This is my co-host. As my thing said in there, I've been doing a radio show for over 14 years here in the Milwaukee area. I'll talk about that a little bit. I have a co-host, Captain Bob, and I'm Arlo, by the way. And our niche is hot rods, classic cars, you name it, everything. For over 14 years, Captain Bob, who you just heard, has never, ever.
Now earlier, before we started, we
Has
we
never
started the
heard
show here
himself
today,
speak.
We talked about, you've got a section called the vault. And inside the vault is, explain to our listeners what the vault's all about.
This is what he hears. This is what he's going to hear, what he heard. This is going to be further in my lecture, but what the heck. This is what he heard. Oops.
The second channel might have an issue just because I had to switch it as making noise. I think what happens is your little computer's giving out extra noise, and it wasn't my cable. So here, let's just plug that one in instead.
Okay.
That's why you're not hearing channel B. I didn't realize we're running A and B.
Yeah.
Try that one, see what works.
Okay. It'll work.
Oh, okay.
Here we go. This is what he heard.
Now earlier, we talked about, you've got,
Hey, let
Explain
me
to-
turn this down. I think I'm overpowering it. I don't have a lot we're going to listen to.
Up
So
here, what channel is that on? Is that right channel? Are you switching back and forth? between two?
this will be it for the day. I mean, I'm going to do other audio things, but
See if that one works. Go.
earlier, we talked about, you've got a section called the vault. Explain to our listeners what the vault's all about.
Okay.
Now earlier, we talked about, you've got a section called the vault. Explain to our listeners what the vault's all about.
that's what Captain Bob hears. He has no clue how horrible he is. He has no clue how much work I do every week producing the show. But that's the fun part of radio show, podcasts, is that we can move a lot of things around. And we're not appealing to the eyeballs or smell or touch, hearing. So we can manipulate what people hear a tremendous amount. So much so that for 14 years, Captain Bob is the best radio host in hot rod radio land. That's the difficult part right there. As you well know, when you're talking about producing the show, when people are talking, they don't have any concept of what they're saying. In fact, right now, I don't, right? You're my proof for that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Back out.
Being my student for years. So I'm glad I had an opportunity to show that to you right away, but let me just get this out of the way now. Let's get back to the talk. Thank you, by the way, for putting this together. All right. Let me go up here. It won't let me get to the switch part. Come on. It's acting funky today. You know what, for the sake of getting this going, let's do this. You're gonna have to look at that whole thing. apologize for that. Let me start here. So you're interested in starting a podcast? It's easy. My radio show itself is a 1 hour on Saturday morning. We purchase the 1 hour from a regional local radio station. And it's an AM FM station. So they also do HD2 as well. So it goes out every Saturday morning at 9. We pay them approximately $150 a week. We've never had a missed show or a repeat show in over 14 years. So when I heard them this morning talking about radio shows and volunteers, it's a lot of work doing a weekly show and never repeating it. I'm not bragging. I'm just very proud of it because I love what I do. Now, but the problem with the stick and broadcasting is it's limited by distance, terrain, and also the direction of the signal. I get hot rodders up in Sheboygan, they can hear me, but Waukesha can't. So try to explain that to somebody, well, they just think it's a big bubble, that the signal goes out in a big, it's just the same big bubble. It's not. It's a direction. But reason we do this, reason I spend $150 a week, believe it or not, it's legitimate with marketing agencies, it's legitimate with sponsors. They still feel that an actual radio station is so viable to the community and to the listeners that we have to keep this. 5 years ago, I was going to do away with this, to be honest with you. But in talking to my sponsors, like, no, man, you're for real. You're a real radio show because you're going over the AM FM. Well, I'm not going to argue that. I am. It's legit. Now, our station, or the station I purchased from, they have a streaming feature they always have. That's great to have. It really is. I think, I heard earlier, almost everybody has that streaming feature. You need that because it doesn't limit you now. It doesn't limit where you're located. It does, though, limit when you can listen to the show, correct? I have listeners around the world. Half the emails that I come in, I can't understand them because I can't translate them. I try to. But that's the cool thing about the streaming. But now we get into podcasts. This is where Wisconsin Hot Radio has grown so much because it allows a listener over any distance, at any time, anywhere. Because you can download it on your phone. You don't need internet. Streaming, you do. Podcast, you don't. Right? You subscribe to it. You can put it on your phone if you want. And you can go out in the middle of nowhere with no signal and still listen to it. That is the cool thing about podcast. Now, let me back up a little bit. The radio show, do I produce two different shows? No, I do not. I take the same show that's played on Saturday morning, I save it as an MP3 file, and upload it to a syndication. They call it syndication, but a host that it goes out to. I'm not going to produce two shows, but I want to talk about that a little bit too. We then have the ability to reach so many through this. Now, I'm a hot rod guy Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, 9 to 10. If you know anything about car guys, at 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, they're at a car show. They're not sitting by the radio. During the winter, they do. So my programming will be different during the winter. Different guests, different types of, because they're going to sit there with their cup of coffee and stuff and listen to me. But during the summer, I have to have them, have to give them the ability to do this and listen to it anytime they want. And they do. Now, the other cool thing about podcasts, there's no age discrimination. An old guy like me and older will come up to me and say, I download your podcast while I'm mowing the yard. I'm listening to you guys. When do you normally do that? Monday, I do that Monday. Sometimes Sunday. That's the beauty of the subscription as well. Because when I post something up, you get a ding that says there's a new episode up there. So we go in episodes, we go in seasons, just like the cable companies. My 7-year-old grandson announced his future career. He's going to be a podcaster or a YouTuber. In fact, my nephew's son, who's 7, has his own YouTube channel on sports. They know how to download, they know how to listen, they know what they're looking for. In fact, my grandson listens to kind of podcasts about games. And when I listen to him, it's just some guy just hooping and hollering while he's playing a game. But my grandson loves it. But that's the reason we moved over to podcast as well. Now, 2007 when we started this, I did have on our website an MP3 or a WAV file that someone could right-click on it and download it to their computer and listen to it that way. Kind of worked. I had some people doing that, but it was so mystical, they didn't know how to do it. So when the podcast service came around, we jumped on it right away. So I'm also, by the way, as he mentioned, I just want to put this up here, because after all it says in my bio, I'm Madison College. That's MATC for many of you in the county area. Sound production. I do work in recording, editing, posting sound, and I also want to click on something here as well. But the reason I started the radio show in 2007 was I started teaching sound production. I knew of sound, I worked in sound at a corporate level, but I really didn't have an appreciation for what we could do with sound. So, I like cars. I know somebody else that likes cars. I approached the radio station and said, hey, what is it going to take me to get on Saturday morning? Now, Saturday morning program on a lot of our radio stations in this area, they have original programming that's local. So I wanted to know the business side of it, the programming side of it, the producing side of it, how to upload it, that type of thing. That's why I started. It was only meant to be a 1-year gig. And it's over 14 years later. That's the cool thing about it. Now, Clarion Radio, because of the college, Madison College has its own streaming radio station. But I want to point out something down here.
You have to move it over.
Yeah, I do.
Need sound?
No, I need my screen. Need to find, here we go. How do I get this to the, I need to be up here. My mouse is not traveling to where I need it to travel. Do you know how to get it up?
Yeah, you keep going. I'll help you out.
Thanks. It doesn't give me the ability to look at the mirror.
Yeah, how do I?
Students at the college, much like your communities type stuff.
I'm already out.
Nice job.
First thing I did.
Now you need my password, I suppose.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Doug. Wow.
You're not supposed to say that. Hello. Sure, you scooped me up. Is it blinking? Yeah, it is. Why is it not getting in there? Oh, that's why.
Betcha.
I knew I liked you as a student for a reason. In my sound production class, in the last 5 years, I had the students design and produce a podcast. That gets presented, or can be presented on their internal radio station. They have to produce it. They also have to think in terms of episodes. So they go through the whole, what is it they want to talk about, who's the market they're going to be talking to, that type of thing. And generally, obviously, it's to students. Some of them have gone on to create and go beyond this station and post it out to the world on a podcast service. They've done fairly well. Very proud of them for that. The reason the students like it is a couple reasons. One, and by the way, you're volunteers as well, is it is easy to create. I'm going to talk about content a little bit later on. Okay, it's easy. Not hard at all. It's very economical, very inexpensive. Did you get it yet? No, of course not.
Okay, well, I got that part of it.
That's okay, just leave it up. I'll talk about it.
Perfect.
So, why is it so popular? Well, first off, you all right?
Yep, good.
You sure? When you talk about video, and video stations and YouTube, the majority of the people don't want to see themselves on the screen. Plus, from a technology standpoint, I have lighting to consider. I have so many other things to consider that it gets very cumbersome. But for the most part, people don't want to see themselves on camera. Podcast is their voice and that's it. They accept that better. They're willing to have their voice go out there, not their face. You know, as they always say in radio, it's, you know, you have the face for radio. Well, that's very true with a lot of my students. They're being taught in video. They're being taught how to promote to YouTube, all of that stuff, but they really dig this. Okay, so that's what's cool about it. Because, also, let me move this out of the way. A podcast, you are eavesdropping in on a conversation. Pure and simple. That conversation could just be one person yapping. Could be two people. Could be one person on a phone. We humans like eavesdropping a little bit. If you listen to the podcast, you're probably not really paying attention all the time. You might be washing the dishes and thinking about something else, but it's going, that type of thing. Because it's the eavesdropping part that we love so much. Yes, the content's important. Yes, I'm learning things. Yes, I'm being entertained. But we are eavesdropping. Or at least it feels like that when we listen to one, which makes making a podcast a whole lot of fun. By the way, I also want to make an additional comment.
From Colin.
Colin, thank you, Colin. Keep pointing to you,
Okay.
because you were in the radio group earlier. Do you have volunteer producers that just produce, that would want to produce?
Yeah, so, I mean, what's cool for us is, you know, they will produce their radio show.
No, they don't do the show. There's someone that you talked about earlier about making the phone calls, assisting
Oh, right,
an
right.
actual producer.
Right.
Would you entertain the idea of volunteer producers for someone to assist?
Sure.
I'd do it. I'd love to do that. So in hearing them talk earlier, is the volunteers, they produce it, write it, content, all that kind of stuff. And you were mentioning earlier that it would do more. It's a lot of work.
Right.
It's a lot of work. Can somebody help me make the phone calls and set up the interviews and stuff like that? I am very fortunate that my co-host loves being on the phone, loves people, goes out there and he makes all the connections. He makes the phone calls. I want to interview someone, he takes care of that. I'm on the back end. Okay. So we make a very good pair. That's when you were talking earlier about, you know, this one person, gee, I could really use some help. Well, get a volunteer to do that. And how do you manage the content? Captain Bob and I will sit down once a month or whatever, talk about the next 4 or 5 episodes. What do you want to do? I want to do this, I want to do that. And then we decide, oh, we need to do an interview with this person. So now you have 2 people that are discussing what the content's going to be. So for me, he's a huge, huge asset. An old story is to elevate our radio show. Back up. Our radio show was nothing more than reading car show flyers. That's all it was. Our job was to let people know where the car shows were. And I won't get into why nobody knew where they were. So I came up with this idea. We'll collect all the car show flyers. He reads one, I read one. He reads one, I read one. Sounds pretty boring, doesn't it? But we laughed all the way through. We had a ball at doing our radio show. A few years later, we get a phone call from Vegas saying, well, why aren't you talking about our car shows? Why is it just Wisconsin? That's that streaming feature. And we're like flabbergasted, like what? Then back in the day, it was Gears, it was History Channel, all those people contacted us and said, yeah, we get your streaming. Would you want to interview someone from our TV shows? And we were flabbergasted. So podcast is that reachable thing for a lot of people, and people who want to be on the podcast are going to find you, and they're going to want to be on your podcast. It was about 4 years into it, I said to Captain Bob, we've done kind of a run with a bunch of different people, and I said, who we really need is Jay Leno. And we can get him. He's the ultimate car guy, by the way, if you don't know that. Ultimate, just amazing. If we can get him, boom, we made it. I challenged Bob in one of those meetings to do it. 6 months later, he calls me, he's crying, he's laughing, he's excited. I got him, I just talked to him. He's going to be on our show. And now, anytime we call, he'll answer. So podcast is an extension of a radio show. It can sound and feel like a radio show, but it doesn't have to be. It can have all of these here too, as well. Education, news, motivation, having a voice, giving your community a voice, something you were talking about, Colin, earlier, about some of these people want to do different things in the community. And that's what you're about, right? You're supporting your community. So why not give them a voice? And assure them that this is going to be easy, okay, from that standpoint. So what's creating the podcast? You're creating the audio landscape. You're in control. I'm not talking about content yet, sort of. I'm talking about the environment that they hear. Any podcast today has a little intro from whoever's going to give it. Hey, today we're going to have blah, 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 and da, da, da. Then we go into music, a little bit of intro, maybe a little professional title, and then we go into somebody just jabbering for 10, 15 minutes. The cool thing about podcasts versus a radio show, podcast is we as listeners and subscribers will listen to the pauses and the hiccups and the drones and the noise and all that kind of. It's acceptable to listen to, dare I say, poor quality of the sound. It's acceptable. In fact, some podcasts are so successful, the person talking sounds echoey, reverb, they're doing a large garage or whatever. People don't care. I have a group right now that have asked me to help produce them, and I won't do it. They're a bunch of biker dudes who are very, very big in the world. It's not a gang, by the way. Didn't want to imply But they're very well-renowned motorcyclists. Their podcast is they take this cell phone, they put it out in the middle of 6 people and record. It's god-awful. And it's called Barap Rap. It's successful. Quality-wise, I listen to them and go, oh my God, my ears are hurting, But they're successful because the content they're talking about, people want to know. They travel around the world. People want to hear where they've been, the races that they've done. They also have the backing of Harley Davidson because of this. An ugly listening sound podcast, but it works. because they've created the audio landscape. Their audience, these biker dudes, they don't care, or dudettes, they don't care. They just want to hear them talk. You know, I've always wanted to meet Warren and Scott. Doubt if I ever will. Oh wait, I can listen to them talk. That's close. I'm getting close to these people without even meeting them. That's that conversation, eavesdropping in on them. Because Scott and Warren are the top of the pyramid, and they've developed some really cool stuff. And so people just want to hear their minds click. So that's what's cool about the landscape. By the way, I'll throw this in here too. Our show, for over 14 years, the majority of the listeners think we're a live show. I'm going to go back to the landscape. I produce it as if it's 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. That's my landscape that I've created. We don't talk about weather. We record on Mondays. I put it together Mondays and Tuesdays. And I finalize it and ship it off up to the hosts and also the radio station. So on Saturday morning, people think we are live for 1 hour. We are not. Very seldom have we done that. And I'll tell you a little side story. So much so. And talk about kind of taking advantage of a situation. So Bob and I, 2 microphones, sitting across each other in just a basement. Nice little studio. He's choking. He's choking on gummy worms. While I'm recording, by the way. You know, really? But we love each other, so we just have a lot of fun. Now, I made a note at such and such a timeline. I gotta take that out. I gotta get rid of that stuff. I listened to it, and it sounded so, it was real, but it sounded like a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. People choke on the air. I left it in. I took some things out, but I kind of kept some of it there. Do you know, and I'm not kidding, to this day, people give us gummy worms? Everywhere we go. I've had large gummy rats given to me with my name on it. A little scary to see Arlo on a gummy rat this big. Gummy worms, gummy bears, you name it. We will go to a car show, and my trunk is full of gummy bears and worms, and we're out, and my car is satin black, the heat, like a Weber grill. So when I get home, they're no longer gummy worms and bears. They're just gummy. They're just done. But the power. For the first few years, we never gave out I didn't have a telephone number. We would have people stop and say, "Hey, Arlo, could you slow down when you give out your number because I want to call into your show?" I never gave out a number. So when we talk about the audio landscape, that is the joy. That is the creativity. That's the fun part of doing these radio show podcasts. Back to this. How many of you have heard of some of these here? How many listen to The Moth? Have you ever heard of The Moth, or which one have you heard before?
Public radio.
Yeah, public radio. I've got the websites queued up. Let me just, let's start with public radio. Do you listen to Fresh Air, or which one do you listen to? Fresh Air is a program on the radio show.
Yeah, I've listened to that one a few times.
Yeah.
The one
Yeah. There's where you have 2 or 3 producers helping the talent. And let me tell you, they've got it down pat. They've got so much so that when you're on the show as a guest, there's somebody constantly in your ear giving you cues. And I'm not used to that. Like, okay, Arlo, you got to slow it down here. I got to go a little fast. I'm like, but the quality, I don't have it up here. The quality.
Need to plug in audio?
No, I'm gonna leave it alone for now. I won't even go to these. How about, let me go down to going to get rid of this stuff since I can't see the other screen. I'm sure it's an easy button. The Moth series, been around for a long time. They come to Madison all the time. The Moth series is this. You submit a story, they like it, you get up in front of an audience, they have a microphone, and you read your story. That's it. And there's serious, tear-jerking comedy, and it's the everyday person that you hear. And they usually do 2 to 3 per episode. It's a podcast series called The Moth. My wife, my daughters hooked me on that because you don't know what you're going to get at any time. Right now they're doing Halloween stories. But it literally is one microphone, a person standing there, and he reads his story. Ultra popular because we are eavesdropping in on the mind of the person reading that story. That's what's cool about it. So take a look at that. What they do is they travel around the country to different locations for people to stand up and give their story. Lately, we're hearing professional writers, storytellers get up there and do it. I don't know if I like it that much anymore. I'll be honest with you. The older stuff was, they misread something and have to start over. It was that natural feel. It was really good. Gimlet. Gimlet Media is a network of podcasts. They house and produce an enormous amount of podcasts. They're kind of a template stamped PowerPoint feel to them. But producers or narrators can get in there and use their template, and if they get picked up by Gimlet, think of Gimlet as ABC, CBN, Fox Channel, all that stuff. They're now the kind of the podcast network. Check them out. That's where you're going to get into crime stories or comedy or instructional videos, stuff like that. I was approached 3 years ago by an investor that loved our radio show so much that he wanted me to start producing other things that have to do with cars and dump trucks and cement trucks and all that kind of stuff. And I immediately went to the Gimlet model. Did I do it? No. Because the technical thing is easy. It's the producing and content that's very hard. Not hard, time consuming. Sure. This thing's just not playing nice today. All right, so things to consider if you're going to do a podcast. Well, I'm going to talk about each one of these, by the way. What does the workflow of making one look like? What equipment do you need? Software? What kind of skills do you need? What about the content? I'm going to spend some time on that if I haven't already. How does it get out to the community? Can you make money at this? Now, I talked to Jeremy last week about, how do you get your funding for a lot of your programs? Are you able to go get funding? And he assured me, yeah, right? Great, because you know what else I am? I love to monetize things. I love money. It's what helps me help others. All my sponsors love the fact that I am helping car people find car shows, and car promoters can find car people because why? Every car show is a benefit. One of the things you never hear about is every car show is a benefit for somebody or something or someplace. They give tremendously. So my sponsors give us money. And you can use other media. So let's talk about this real quick. What's the workflow? Record it, post it. You can record it and post it. That's it. That's it. You don't need anything. Because podcasts, as I mentioned about those biker dudes, the audience, that's all they want. They want to hear you speak. They want to hear what's on your mind about a specific topic. That's it. You don't need to go in there and clean it all up. You don't need to add all these jingles and stuff in there. You just do it. I'll talk about posting in a little bit. Or you can record it and clean it up like I did with Captain Bob. I change it around a few things, by the way, and then post it. Now, it's that part there, and that the last two is what I really enjoy doing. I love making Captain Bob sound really good. By the way, he's not the only one. Once a week or a couple times in that week, I've said something I shouldn't have said. Not that it's inappropriate, but it wasn't timed right. I might have said something about the weather. You know, Monday it's snowing. And remember, now we're on Saturday. And so I made the big mistake about saying, well, it's snowing out there, Cap Bob, what do you think? I got to go in there and do that. But remember, mine's unique because I'm trying to sound live. Clean up and post it. Now the bottom one, record it, clean it up. Clean up means like Captain Bob, where we took out a bunch of things and we moved things around a little bit kind of thing. And add other elements. Music, commercials, intro bumpers, like a real radio show is. I have bumper music coming in and out. Think of it like a talk show. And then post it. Any one of these is acceptable. So we talk about the ease of doing this. It's pretty straightforward. When you do video, well, now you got the visual to worry about. What's in the frame? Is it lighted right? In audio, we can do a lot of modifications with no one knowing. Jay Leno is severely ADD. We can talk to him, by the way, we record anywhere from 30 minutes to 45, 60 minutes with a guest. I have to get it down to 10-minute segments, 2 of those, if I can. Leno will be talking, he'll go, wow, what was the name of that guy? I don't remember the name. I don't know. So I have to tell him, hey, you know what, let's move on. 30 minutes later, he's like, you know, Billy Bob. What? That's the name I was trying to remember earlier. When I do cleanup, I will take Billy Bob and put it down here. And he'll say, you remember the guy named Billy Bob? And that's the magic I love doing. Now, am I cheating? Sure. But you know what else I'm doing? I'm making Jay Leno sound really good. Would Jay Leno want me to do that? Yes. He's told me that. They all have. I've had a few say, I really sounded... I had one guy go off on how he was arrested in Mexico and put into prison and how he escaped because he ran over a statue with a Jeep. Had nothing to do with what we were talking about. So I had to do a lot of editing on that one, clean it up. He thought now he's pushing me to be back on the show. I'm going, no. No, that was 4 hours worth of work, buddy. No, I didn't tell him that. I really sounded good. Yeah, you did. See, that's the other beauty of it. Captain Bob still doesn't know how he sounds. I make him that way. And they really believe it. Now, so we got some options there. I do have these hot links, but we can't get to the browser. But anyways, a built-in microphone. My cell phone's over there. Cell phone. Got a built-in microphone. That's what the biker dudes are using. Just got to get a recording app like Audacity or something like that and put it into that. The best is to get a device with inputs with microphones where you can snap them in. Again, don't have the browser, but I use the Zooms. Zooms are very inexpensive. They're very versatile. And the H4, which is the low-end one, has a built-in microphone and 2 XLR connectors for 2 microphones. You're looking at $150 for the recording device and whatever you want to put for microphones. Essentially, then I have 3 microphones. And I've done that. Our guest gets the microphone, Bob gets one, and I get the microphone that's built in. So they're very inexpensive. Right now I'm using what they call an H6. And an H6, I can do 6 inputs. And I have. Yes?
interrupt you for 1
Yeah,
second?
am I late?
We're hitting the 10 o'clock, or 11, sorry,
Yeah.
11 o'clock. But since we got off to a late start, and there's nothing until, whoa, what did I see?
I'll hurry up.
No, I'm just gonna say it, if you guys are okay with it, if you wanna take off, you can. There's, nothing now until 1:45, and Alan can correct me if I'm wrong. Noon to 1:45 is the open luncheon, so the next hour is yours if you need to do whatever. But if you wanna stay and finish up, Doug sure would probably finish up.
Yeah, I've got another 3 hours to go.
Oh, fantastic. So, just so you know, but I'd like to stay and listen.
So the H6 I love, but there's a problem with the H6. Nowadays, podcasts, when you create one, you're going to do an interview not in the studio. You're going to do an interview with someone over the telephone. Zoom recognized that. By the way, Tascam has the same. Zoom recognized that, and they have units now that will take off your cell phone, plug it into this unit, and now you can have a conversation with someone over the telephone. I think it's brilliant because I had to go out and kind of fabricate my own telephone system to take the phone calls in and out. So I think it's the Zoom L8 and L4. The difference there is how many inputs you can do. But it has a built-in telephone. Now, it doesn't sound like much, but imagine you got to tap into your cell phone and get it on the air somehow. It's not that easy unless you have the technology, which the Zoom products are coming out. Zoom has really recognized the trend. Yeah.
Alright, I just wanted to mention something.
Yeah.
I'll just tell for everybody when this is done, just to fill these out. So,
Not on me, I hope.
no. All 10 stars.
Zoom has recognized podcast is here. And one of the things podcasters want is the ability to call people. Okay, so that's what's going on there. Hands-free, I'm talking about their microphone stand. Although Zoom comes with its own little stand. Now, I got environment, quiet rooms, stuffed animals can be helpful. I don't have a fancy recording room. My students can't afford to put foam on the walls, and they live in apartments that are noisy and stuff like that. So in my tutorials to them is, I tell them, you have stuffed animals, you have relatives with stuffed animals, anything like pillows, build a little wall behind your microphone or your H4 Zoom or whatever you have, put something there. Because one of the things I'm not going to get into here is how can we differentiate sound of a voice? How do we pick it up? If you use, and I actually have my granddaughter's massive, really fluffy elephant. And I put that behind me when I'm doing just me. And our studio is a little bit different. But you can buy these boards. They're too expensive. Get a pillow, put it behind there, or a stuffed animal. Things to consider, software. Anything you can cut and paste. Now, Audition, I know is part of the Adobe products, and that's what I use for that. I use Audition because it's part of the Adobe Creative Suite. I don't know if you can afford that or not, but there are a lot of freeware as well that can do the same thing. If you're going to get in more, if you're going to get into not just cleanup, but you're going to get into other elements, you're going to need to go to a multi-track type software. And Audition can do that too. Keep in mind that there's two things when it comes to sound, audio, a single file and a multi-track. Single file is where I cut everything up and clean it, then I put it into a multi-track. Podcast service that push out to others. Again, these are all hot linked and I can't get it up. I use Liberation Syndicate, or Lip Sync, they call it. I believe it's $15 a month to subscribe. Now, what this does for me is a really nice service. I take my MP3 file that I've exported out of my show. I upload it to this group. I give it a little bit of keywords and a little bit of topic to it. And it's done. I hit submit. What this service does is it pushes out to iTunes, YouTube Music. It does all the work for me. I don't have to do it. Stitch, all the things that people can subscribe to or find. The description that I put in automatically goes over, so does the file, for that minimal amount. And now it's available to anybody that finds it. The keywords you put in there, people search, Google. They'll search car shows in Wisconsin. I come up fairly high. You'll see my website, but you also see my podcast come up. You click on it, it could come up in Stitch, it could come up, it used to be Google Music, now it's YouTube Music. Any of those services, which are free. And we were talking about earlier, you can subscribe to my show, so every week when I publish it, ding, it lets you know there's a new episode. And you click on that, and you can download it or listen to it. The other thing about a podcast that comes through this way as well is I can embed that into my website. They don't even have to go download if they don't want to. In other words, I get some that say, I just want to go back to your website and listen to it. We have it set up so right after the live show, a graphic comes up and it's a playhead, and there it is. Because of the service of the syndication, syndicate I should say, they can put that in there, which is really cool. They don't have to download, they can listen to the whole thing again right there in my website. So what that's doing, it's driving traffic back to my website, which is key. They can go out and get my stuff anywhere, but if I can get them to come back and click playhead right in there, and I don't have to do anything, it just sets up right in there. So that's also very easy and accessible.
And Doug, I'll piggyback on that. When I was telling you about our senior center one, we used Podbean. Podbean and that one was a free trial with an X amount of uploads. And what we told the senior center group was, well, we'll upload the new show each month, but we'll only keep, X amount up there. But same thing, it gives you a template and the code to put it into your website and embed it. And we wanted the same thing. We wanted somewhere where you could drop it and it was going to go everywhere that people could see it. So, and they start subscriptions too, but Podbean was the one we used. Just throwing that out there. There's a lot of great ones out there.
There are a lot of great ones. Yep. Okay, let's get to so you can all get to eat or whatever. Let's get to this. This is the hard part.
No.
Yes. It's no different. Here's what you got to know. Who are you going to be serving when you produce these? Now you have volunteers that come in and they're saying, I'm going to serve this particular group. Okay? And we don't care in the podcast world if it's a very small group, meaning that we're not going to try to win over the ratings of ABC, NBC. We don't care. Or any radio station within the region. Why? We don't. As long as we serve that group well. I know my group very, very well because we hang out with them, we talk to them. I always ask them, what should we be doing different? What do you want us to do in the future? That type of thing. Right now, we're talking a great deal and talking to people about electric cars. Wait, that's not a hot rod. Well, it kind of is. But our hot rodders are curious, a little bit upset. Wait a minute, what's going to happen to my gasoline car, my horsepower and all this other stuff? These electric vehicle things, come on. Well, we're bringing in people like them and asking them, what would you need to know about electric? So that's important. That's important to them. Is there enough stuff to talk about that will last forever? Jeremy and I were talking about this last week. My students, I say to them, this is episodes and seasons. Seasons is every, season 1, season 2, episode da-da-da-da. Do you have enough stuff to talk about? Is your community what do they want to know that'll transition across that whole time? That's the hard part. What's the content going to be? Now, you don't have to know it all, but you should be able to spell out at least 10 episodes and do it that way. Then you kind of know. After a while, it evolved. Ours evolved from reading car show flyers to now we don't hardly do any of that. We transitioned. But our main goal, we're still supporting the same group. The content, as far as what we're trying to do and who we're trying to serve, That's our main goal. But do you have enough to talk about? Would content be available? We talked about guests. We talked about a little bit about who's going to be on the show. What are you going to talk about, that type of thing. Where's this all going to come from? Well, Bob and I, every week, we're so immersed in our community, we're watching the blogs, we're watching the news, we're watching this. We're even watching the obituaries because a car guy just passed away that we all just really love. Stars, every kind of thing. We love doing it. Well, are you going to love doing that? Like the guy you had, Colin, about, I'd love to do this every week, but I just don't have the time to do it? Or do you have the passion to do it? That's the other thing. That's the important thing. Do you, the producer, have enough passion about the group you're serving? Yes, I do. So does Bob. You have to have that. And I think when you cultivate people to do podcasts for you, or even a radio show, the podcast part of it, though, is make sure they're passionate about what they want to do and they have enough content to do it. Again, they don't have to tell you exactly what the content is every week, but they should have an idea where it's going to go. Automotive is unlimited to me. I can go any which way. I can bring in stars to talk about their TV shows. We're bringing in government people to talk about the emissions stuff. The EPA is coming after us. I can talk about, they're taking away a lot of the, California's stopping, a lot of the gasoline semis and diesels that are coming in there. Backstory, the reason we got Leno on was on TV, one of the celebrities was talking about how California is going to do away with these collector cars. You won't be able to drive them. Bobby tried to get a hold of Leno for many times. Finally, someone answered the phone and said, "Hey, what do you need to talk to him about?" I want to talk to him. Is he aware that Wayne Carini and the show did a whole show on how they're going to outlaw Jay Leno's cars? She said, "Just a minute." Put him on hold. Next thing you know, he's talking to some fella. Took him about 30 seconds to realize it's Jay. And Jay was, "What the hell are you talking about? What do you mean about my collection?" So Bob told him what we heard. Bob told him what we found. He hangs up, says, "I'll call you right back." He calls the governor, and a bunch of people comes back and says, "You know what, you guys are right. Really appreciate that. What do you need from me? We need access to you anytime you want." That's the passion I'm talking about. You're willing to do that. I'm going to stop here soon because I don't want to keep you too long. Here's the thing. You can be the expert. You can know the topics. You can be the one who finds the expert, which Bob and I do. We have the passion to find someone. Doesn't have to be every week the same expert. We're just trying to find something about a topic that you can go solo all by yourself. I can't do that. I need somebody to talk with me. You can go with a co-host, a panel, or a guest. That's the other thing. It's so pliable. Whereas radio is still, you can still do that, but it's a time-driven thing, whereas podcast is kind of loose. And you can get away with people coming in. You can get somebody at 10 o'clock at night. If they're on the east-west coast, that way, east-west coast, they'll hang out with you on the phone or whatever. Another sidebar, and I'm going to be done. There's more to talk about, but this is the crust I want to get to. What's really neat about us pre-recording and making it sound like we're live, everyone we've interviewed love to role play that it is Saturday morning. We tell them, you have to pretend it's Saturday morning. So we'll call out to California. "Dude, are you really, I just came out of the surf, and really it's 7 o'clock here. What the hell's the matter with you guys calling me this early? It's Monday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon." They loved, Jay Leno loves it. They all love doing it. They'll role play. Because that's the environment that I wanted to create. That sound environment. There were other things to consider. I'm just going to quickly. We talked about the hosting service. Social media, by the way. is a great avenue to get the podcast out as well. Sponsorship. Now, what's nice about podcasts is that you can sign a sponsorship up for a year. You are not salespeople. I'm not a salesperson. Bob's not a salesperson. He tried, but he's horrible at it. Do you really want to go out and try to sell stuff to make money for that podcast or that whole service that you're going to offer? No. So whoever you're serving, the community that you're serving, the audience that you said I want to help, there's going to be vendors out there. There's going to be support services. They're going to want to reach those people. Remember, it does not have to be a big group. Businesses, support services, community services want to reach 10 people. They want to reach 20 people. They want to reach 10,000. They just want to get the voice directly to them. So what we do is we get approached, or we approach them and say, hey, you know what? We're not salespeople. Can you sign up a year contract at this amount of money? And you're guaranteed that we'll talk about you on the radio, or we'll make a little jingle. They go, yeah, okay, that's cool. You want to go quarterly? Go quarterly. You want to go monthly? Go monthly. You want to go weekly? I don't care, but you don't have to do the invoicing. You can approach them. We also do a couple things. We have the gold, silver, and bronze levels. What does that mean? Gold, you're on every week, a lot of chatter, and you're going to call in. We have a couple of those like right now. Big Boy came back to the state of Wisconsin, the restaurant, and he wants everyone to know he's back, or the restaurant's back. So we do telephone chatter with him for like 3 minutes. He's on every week. That's a gold. How much is that? 10 grand. It's a one restaurant. But he's trying to get to my very niche group, because Big Boy is the place to go cruising. It's the place to hang out. It's the place to have a burger. And he knows it. So when he got the franchise back in Wisconsin, he's like, what vehicle do I need to do and find to be the voice for me? Silver. Well, we talk about them in chatter. 5 grand for a year. The bronze, whatever we can do. That's like 3,000. And the other thing is, you will find, hopefully you'll find in your podcast adventures, is you're going to have more sponsors than you know what to do with. I wish that for you. It took us some time though. We found sponsors right away, but when we just announced we were going to do this, we have people that have been with us for 14 years. And when we approach them and say, hey, we need something else, they go, yes, you're helping the community. The reason they're with us, other than the Big Boy guy, is they are trying to be helpful to the car community. Yes. Yeah, he's been after me.
Okay, just making
We
sure.
got a late start.
Got it, thank you.
Yep. All right, I'm giving the cue. But these are the two things I want to get to. The content is important, sponsorship, they're out there. And you do not have to say to them, well, I got 10,000 people. They don't care. If you can carve out a niche to a particular audience, that's what they want to hear, and they'll support. Who's got the van out there with Sun Prairie? You? And you've got, who's the Honda dealership?
Wild.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, you're going to find people wanting to support the podcast. Love the graphics, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm parked right next to you.
Yeah.
With my
Also
hot rod radio
taking your
van.
van
All right,
out.
I'm gonna let you go. Sorry for the delays here, stuff, but anyways, thank you all. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you guys. Round of applause for Doug. Appreciate his time. Sorry we have the technical glitches, but Doug, do you have contact information that people could?
No, I don't.
You son of a. All right. Well,
I didn't bring my cards.
yeah. Either way, I can get you hooked up with Doug.
Look
and-
up WisconsinHotRodRadio.com.
Yeah.
I'm Arlo, by the way. No, I need to say this to you. Do not tell anybody, though, I'm Doug. That's another myth I've created. one of the fun things with podcast radio shows is I've created a whole character named Arlo. And nobody knows my real name. They all know me as Arlo, except at the Madison College. And for years, I kept it a secret from them. They didn't know I had a radio show and that I was called Arlo. I've led 2 lives for many years, and I loved it. All right, thank you.
Thank
I'll
you,
let you go.
everybody, for coming to this. Appreciate it.